demo here. So last week we went over how to break down facial poses and improve our animation so that we're not just getting the default Maya A to B facial animation. So just kind of as a quick recap, this is the very first test that we did where we did very basic facial poses and just kind of strung them together. So I retimed them here so they kind of match the timing we have in our final shot. And as you can see here, it's not that interesting. The facial poses themselves just aren't fun to look at. They're very flat. Everything is very rigid. There's no change of line of action to the face. We're not really getting a visual treat when we're looking at this. It's just flat. Everything is flat. And worse is the breakdowns are very, well, they're non-existent. We basically just slide from one key to the next. Not interesting. Now, in this test, we pushed the facial expressions and we even added a little eye dart. So this is already much more interesting. We have a line of action change in the shot. You can see from this pose to this pose, it's changing. We're getting that nice contrapposto change. It just makes things more fun to look at in terms of the individual poses. But even with that improvement, so we made these much better facial poses, the animation itself is not fun to look at because we are going literally from one pose sliding to the next. And no matter what we do here, if we don't put breakdowns, it's never going to really look interesting. So last week, what we ended up doing was just doing that one thing, adding breakdowns, offsetting elements so that certain things will start sooner than others. So let's play through this here. We also added some moving holds. Now the last expression change, that's what we're going to be working on today. But you can see here, suddenly that's much more interesting. That feels like the character has some life to them. And there's this extra feeling to the character. Now, is it perfect? Oh, not at all. There's definitely a lot of little polished stuff that I would want to add in there. But this is not a stream about adding all the polishing, like getting all of it super refined. We can maybe do that in another stream. This is more just how to think about breaking this down and how we can make our changes in expression so much more interesting. So let's actually just look at it side by side here, just so we can compare and see what we're going to be doing. So essentially the old one is on the left, new one is on the right, and you can see essentially what's happening is breakdowns. Instead of just sliding on the left here from one point to the next, we can see that on the right, the eyebrows and eyelids start moving first. We get this counter motion where the eyebrows are going up, eyelids are going down. Then the mouth starts moving, and instead of the mouth just kind of sliding up, we get a little bit of an arc to it. There's this kind of motion in the mouth. And Alex, thanks so much for the raid. Oh, geez, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're all doing well. Aw, thank you so much. Welcome. We're just going over how to break down facial animation to get more appealing facial motion. So hello, welcome, and hope you all had a good stream. And let's see, just catch up here. Alex, hope you had a fun stream as well. I'll have to check you out after. See. Awesome. Cool, thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. So, going through here, you can see the facial expression is really just broken down. It's going through and making sure that things are offset, that things don't move in a linear way. Even the head motion underneath the character, instead of just sliding up, we made sure to have the head kind of anticipate down a little bit, break down that chin coming in before the head comes up. It creates this extra little motion to the head, and if you watch the tip of the nose, we start getting a little bit of an arc to the face as well. Detailing a tank. Oh, nice. ZBrush. Oh, that's awesome. I've been doing a little bit more sculpting myself in my free time. I need to do a lot more. I love sculpting. But that's awesome. I'll have to check out your stream and see a tank. Uh that's cool. Detailing a tank. So were you using, out of curiosity, we're using what are they called now? They Why am I blanking on the term? When you have prefab pieces, like making prefab pieces and then just putting them on the tank, or was it still in the kind of blocking out the details? I love ZBrush. Any sculpting, like as you can see, I love like toys and sculptures and stuff like that. So, uh, it's yeah, kit bashing. That's the term. Thank you. That's the term I was looking for. Uh, Now, before I get too distracted here, another thing that I was doing here is adding a little bit of sympathetic motion in the face. So sympathetic motion is more of a polish thing. You don't have to do it in your first breakdown pass, but it's something I like to do. So that is, for example, as his mouth goes in and his chin stretches, if you watch the cheeks, you can see that they narrow down. They get sucked in a little bit before they come back, and we get a little bit more kind of pop in the cheeks. Now there's a little bit too much here. You can see that silhouette pop in the face right there. That's something I could polish and just kind of clean up a little bit. But overall, it gives that much better kind of exaggeration to the character. I'm gonna have to show you our IP rig sculpting. Yes, I'd love to see it. I love the designs that you've been showing on Instagram and all of those. It looks really cool. So yeah, if you have some modeling stuff, I'd love to see it. And sorry for this distraction. Not at all. If for anyone who hasn't been in these streams before, this is the stream of tangents. If I see something in the chat, we're going on a talk about it. It's terrible, but I enjoy it. It's fun for me, and hopefully, it's fun to see for everyone else to join on the tangent train. I usually like to do everything myself, more torturing, but I can say all is done by me. Nice. So in terms of kit bashing, do you not like taking someone else's kit, but making your own little like elements and then using it? So IMM brushes, insert mesh brushes. Do you do that quite a bit for the tank, or is it mostly like all the details are sculpted individually? I know a few people who do that, and I can't wrap my brain around it because that is a lot of work, and my sculpting skills are not up to that point. But yeah, I love just like insert mesh brushes, making my own and then using those. So nice, efficient. I can imagine on a tank that would be really useful. I'm assuming that's what you're probably working on. That would be cool. I do the base mesh in 3ds Max and then move. Oh, nice. That's cool. That's really cool. Okay. I'll have to check out your stream. Let me actually save it here so I don't forget to check it out. Okay. Aha. And then there we go. Cool. So, so for today, what we're going to be focusing on is animating this expression here. As you can see, it's still boring, straight one to the other. There's no visual interest here. So we're going to try and break this down and make this more interesting. Now in our Maya file here, we've got just the head right there. And you can see our main transition here is happening between frame 47 and 63. That's the main area that we want to start animating in. We'll also add in, and my camera just froze. We'll add in some moving holds, as well as some, what am I, my brain is not working today. Some moving holds, and then a little bit of extra arcs in our motion to make things a lot more appealing. Now, how do we start this? Well, like we mentioned last week, I like to look at a reference. Not that you have to copy your reference exactly. We very rarely want to copy a reference, but we can use it as inspiration. So this was some quick reference I shot that was just very basic, and it's me just going from one expression to the next. And one thing I liked about this, I shot a few different ones, is the breakup of action that you see. So instead of everything sliding in together, there's a few things that happen. One is the brows start leading the action down. And then, weirdly enough, it's not the eyes. Usually it's eyes and brows together that lead. Instead, it's the lips right here. The lips start to come up first with the eyes just a little bit behind that. So it just kind of creates this nice, cool little rhythm in there that normally you would kind of do the other way of having eyes lead. So that's something cool, something unique we can add into this moment. And you can see just how long it takes for my head to turn. It doesn't start at the exact same time as my expression change. It happens way later. So these are all things that I can use to help improve my breakdowns. So let me put this on my other monitor here so I can just kind of keep track of the notes that I took. It's always nice to write down notes. Let me actually show this here. So I know how long I wanted to hold my animation for. I have my basic timing right there of when things should happen. So it's the brows, then the top lip and the cheek, then the eyes, and then the head turn. And I don't have to like follow that exactly, but it gives me a base to start from. Let's see, going back to our offset conversation, this would be details to add later normally, correct? Much later than breakdowns. How does your graph editor look at this point? So offsets are breakdowns. It's just different ways of approaching it. You can build offsets by, for example, I could go here, let's say on frame, I believe 57 is what I wanted. And I could just take the entire face here and set a key and put a breakdown here and build the offset. So essentially just putting in a breakdown. And in this case, I would want the head to stay in place. So the head, I'm just going to copy the key from frame 47 to frame 57. So now you can see the face starts to react first, and then the head turns. So already just that, technically I would want to do the rest of the face too. That is getting us that breakdown. And you do a full pose. That's one workflow you can do. This is the post-pose workflow. Or you can do it in a layered workflow where you focus on just one thing at a time. Now, for full body poses, I personally prefer the pose-to-pose method. And hey, Standing Art, thank you so much for the host. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So when we're breaking that down, we could do the pose-to-pose method, which, like I said, I prefer for full poses for the whole body because it allows me to build in the entire silhouette, make sure that the whole thing works really well. For the face, I tend to work in a layered method most of the time, unless I'm doing very specific facial poses that I need to hit, mostly because the face is kind of very dependent, especially the whole mouth area. The mouth, especially if you're doing a lip sync shot, needs to follow the lip sync, the audio, which means that if I'm trying to go pose to pose to pose and try to get those lips to match at that audio at that time with everything else, it's just a lot more work and headache versus just making sure the head motion works, then the eyes work, then the mouth works on its own. It just kind of simplifies everything I have to do. And especially considering, look at how many controls are on this face here. The face alone typically has, on a really good rig, has more controls than the rest of the body. That's not including like bend bows and stuff like that. So if I'm trying to do all of these along with all the controls of the body, it's just an information overload. So I will approach this in a layered method. So I usually start biggest things first. So in this case, it's going to be the head and neck, the base motion, because everything will depend on the angle of that head to make a nice appealing shape and expression. So let's kind of build that in here. So I'm going to animate the head and neck. And like I said, that in my reference, we have a little bit of a delay on there. So I want to make sure that the head stays still up until frame 57. So we just put a key on the head and neck. And you'll notice the face is still morphing in a weird way. That's fine. We're just focusing on the overall large masses. Now, as it goes down here, see how the head just kind of goes in this really straight, boring line that if you look at the tip of the nose, it's just going diagonally and then just stops. I don't want that. Now, this is where I could add my own flair. I could use elements from my reference. In my reference, I don't do nearly the same thing as in my shot, but there are some interesting elements where as I look down, you'll notice that my nose angles down. There's kind of a arc this way. And then I overshoot where I go too far and then hold a little bit before coming back at the end. Now in my reference here, I hold very long. I don't have to hold that long in my final animation here. Maybe I'll just have him go hold and then come back just a little bit. So we can break this down a little bit. Now, as we go through here, another element I can look for is the neck and head. How do they work together? So if we actually look at this, you'll notice that my neck doesn't really do too much, but my head is definitely leading it quite a bit. So I'm going to try and have the head lead the action here. Now, how do I want to do this? Well, I can just add breakdowns on the head. So I'm going to go maybe, let's see, 57 to 63. We've got 6 frames. I could do it on 3s. Now we'll do it on 2s. So I'm going to just go here, set a key on the head, and let's set a key on the neck. The neck, I'm going to basically keep it in place for 2 extra frames. So now we have the head moving a little bit. It's going to look a little stiff right now, but we can fix it later. And for the head, let's just make sure that instead of moving in this line, just this boring linear line, we add some offsets to things. So for example, instead of everything starting to turn at the same time, maybe we have the head lead with the chin. The chin is going to be the thing that kind of pulls the head forward. It will kind of counter that motion here like that. So the head kind of stays in place, and we might add a little anticipation even. The head starts, yeah, so just a little bit of a down there. I like having the graph editor open for things like this because you can see the small changes. And let's exaggerate our rotate Z a little bit. Something like this for now. We've got that. We'll add another breakdown here. And now we're going to make sure that the head comes down. And then it'll come back up. But as it comes down, let's actually twist it around. Or actually, too far. Something like that. So what I want to try and do is just get a little bit of drag to the head here. So I'm looking at the top of the head and seeing how I can kind of exaggerate that motion. Now, one thing I'm noticing is that my overlap is kind of popping a little bit. So let's try something else. And this is what I love about breakdowns, is you can just try things. What I'm feeling is that I'm not having a nice contrast between this pose and this pose in my animation. So what if I drag the chin first, like this, where the chin goes out, and then I kind of exaggerate the head this way, and then we get that kind of like switch over. So we get something like that. I kind of like that. It kind of creates this better arc to the face as we go through. Okay. Now, on frame 63, that was the original stop to our motion. But I want to add an overshoot. I want this to go a little too far, hold, and then come back. So let's do that. So we've got this pose here. Let's actually pull it back a little further. And maybe kind of see. What angle do I want the head to be? Yeah, let's do something like this. So now it'll come up in here, and let's really exaggerate that motion. See how far I can push it. Always try to over exaggerate your motions. It's going to just be more visually interesting. If you're just doing small, tiny changes and just, a little range, it's not going to be as interesting as if you go much bigger. And if it's too far, you can tone it down. So we get something like this. How is this feeling? Not bad. Let's actually make this hold. I think I'm going to hold for 6 frames. Like that. We might only do 4 frames. We'll see. So the face will hold there before coming back over here. So something like that. And now you'll notice there's no moving holds or anything. Actually, I might only do 4 frames. I don't think we'll have time for 6. And then let's bring it back up here. 67. So we've got 8 frames. Let's break this down on 4s. So right there, I want this to be most of the way. So we just get a little bit of an ease in there. And what arc do I want to go with this? So we arc the nose down here. So let's kind of arc the nose up a little bit right there. Oops, wrong key there. I want to put one here. So I'm just trying to break this down, make it a little bit more interesting. Comes through. I think I pushed the head a little too far. Let's drag that nose. Yeah, I like it. So we led with the chin here. So I kind of want to lead with the top of the head here, just to add a little bit more kind of visual range to that. So we get that drag. Let's kind of push this a little bit more. It's kind of flat right there, plateauing. So something like this. So it goes round and then up and over. And maybe I'll just tone that down a little bit. I want this one to be much more subtle. And then to settle in here, let's really just hold this as much as we can. I want to ease that in as much as possible so we have enough time to register this motion. Pull back and come forward. And yeah, I definitely feel like I've pushed it too much here. So I'm just going to go into my graph editor and pull it back a little bit. Like so. Let's see. How does that feel? Definitely too high here. I want to keep his head low. So you aren't even looking or thinking about your other controls? No. At this point, I'm just trying to focus entirely on what is going to make this the most appealing that it can. Um, I already know where my other keys are. I've done all my other animation. At this point, it's really just creating nice breakdowns. And Jing, hello, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Okay, there's a little bit too much rotate Z here. We're popping that head a little too much. Okay, let's see how it looks in motion. It's not going to be great. Yeah, I kind of like that. I'm not getting perfect playback here, but that's fine. Okay, so we've got that. Let's refine the head just a little bit more. So essentially what I'm going to do is just play with my curves to see if I can get something a little bit more visually interesting. So the motion starts here, and then as it comes through, it's kind of, let's see, what's feeling off here? It kind of feels like it spins a little bit too quickly. And Trango, thank you so much for the bits. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to look at my rotate Y here. So that's the side to side of the head. And it kind of feels like it just, well, it feels linear. So I'm just going to take my curve here and try to exaggerate that. So it holds a little bit more at the beginning, just a little bit, before coming across a little bit faster. And then instead of just hitting and holding here, now I'm going to start making my moving hold, where I'm going to take that extra key there. And now as the head comes through, you can see it just kind of keeps going into that pose. And in this case, I want just this nice, subtle ease in there. Actually, he goes over. I might actually add a little overshoot instead. So just a tiny little overshoot here. So now it goes over, starts to come back, and no. Let's stick with the ease for now. But ease is in. Okay. Now as he turns back here, this is definitely feeling linear. One thing I always look for in my graph editor is if you take these curves and just put them into a linear curve, see how that's almost a perfectly straight line there? That tells me that my breakdown isn't as interesting as it could be. Now, does it mean that it's wrong? No, it just could be better in most cases. So I'm going to take this and just favor one side more than the other. So I'll probably ease this out just a little bit more, something like that. We get a little bit of an ease before it goes across. And then let's make sure that it's just got a little bit of motion here, just a little bit. So it's just getting that extra little visual oomph in there. And Superhero, hello! Hope you're doing well. Now let's look at our rotate X. So that's the up and down, the nod in here. So let's see what's going on. We've got this motion right here. The head starts to come down. That's good. It comes down all this way, goes up. But then I think I wanted to keep going up a little bit. So I'm going to push this first key over. So now we get that little bit of a moving hold as it comes through. And let's do something like this. No, the other way, this way. Let's hold a little bit more later on here. So it comes through, holds. And I might just exaggerate this curve here. Okay. Now, as he comes through, let's once again exaggerate our curve. I'm just making sure that it's not linear. That's the big key here. If it's linear, it tends to just make things less interesting. I'm also just watching the arc of the nose, trying to make sure it doesn't feel like it freezes in weird ways. So I want that kind of nice continuing arc up there before he turns around here. And this is looking a little boring. So let's see what I can do here. Maybe ease this in just a little bit more. And let's push this curve so it doesn't have a pop in there. Okay, something like that. Now, we'll do the same with the rotate Z. And this might all be wrong. This is the big thing. This might not be like the final thing. It's a quick test. And for me personally, I just like to try and throw things in with purpose. I don't just randomly move things. But then from there, I can refine it and figure out what doesn't work. This is not a final, this is what it's going to be. If it doesn't work out, what am I going to do? Oh my God, I'm a terrible animator. If it doesn't work out, that's the whole point. I'm experimenting, I'm trying with purpose, but it is trying to find what works best for this animation. One of the biggest, I guess you could say, not faults, but hurdles you can jump into when you're, or hit when you're an animator and you're starting out, is thinking that everything you do has to be the final version. No, you want to iterate. You might do a version and it doesn't work out. So you make another version and you try something else and you do something different and you just experiment. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what's going to get you better and better ideas. You try something else, you come up with a different idea. You find out what didn't work in the first place. So don't ever be afraid of iterating your shot, of trying something else. So he comes through here. Now this feels a little bland right there, so I might overshoot this a little bit. We'll see. I think that might make it a little bouncy. But I kind of like it. I might actually, just to avoid the bounce feeling, start coming down through here. Let's see. I'm just curious. What happens if I do this? Again, is that iteration? Okay. Something like that. Or let's undo and just see what we had before. I want to compare. Now, ideally, what you should do when you want to compare animation is save a buffer curve. That saves a copy of your old curve, and then you can quickly switch back and forth. Let's actually go this way. But I might do something like this. Where it just rounds out a little bit more. Over and then through. Yeah. So now we've got a little bit of a moving hold here. I think I can push my rotate Y a little bit more. Get a little bit more of an ease in there. Just a little bit. As well as my rotate X, there's a little bit of a hitch that I'm noticing. Okay. Something like that. Now, as he goes over, we were working on our rotate Z, so let's try to get that working a little bit better. I think I can try to push this down a little bit more, try to lead with that head tilt. So this is actually something that it's kind of hard to explain without showing it, but I'm going to see if I can. I can show it here a little bit. Is as I'm animating, one thing I'm trying to do, especially when you're looking at all of your rotations, is try not to let them all ease in and out at the same time and the same way. So if I look at all my curves, if you remember how they all kind of stopped together. So let's take a look here, for example. See how they all start and stop all at the same time. It's all flat. And then they all kind of ease out the same way. I'm going to change this later when I create a little bit of a moving hold in the middle section. But that is not great. That's boring because everything is happening all at the same time. And that's what we had in the middle here, where everything that we did, they all kind of stopped in the same way, eased in into the same way, and then eased out in the same way. And that creates a very mechanical stop and it's dead looking. Instead, what I'm trying to do is I'm making each one ever so slightly different. So for example, the rotate X here, you'll notice that it actually has a slight offset. I offset one of the keys here. The rotate Y, it tends to ease in a lot more. Now, as I go further, I can even start offsetting some curves just a little bit. So for example, I might want his head to start tilting maybe one frame sooner right here. So we start the motion of the tilt just a little bit sooner right there. And I definitely need to hold this a little bit more. Ease that out a little bit. So I can start to offset my moving hold ever so slightly. And ideally, what I would also do is try to have certain holds ease in, other ones overshoot, other ones ease out. So every curve is a little different, but in this case, I feel like they all kind of work better in a similar way. Now, posting from earlier, is there an explanation of why the mouth leads in this particular case instead of the eyes leading? I feel like I never deviate from defaults in animation, such as eyes leading the face or a generic finger grouping. It's essentially the psychology of it all. So it's different things will lead at different times based on what you're feeling and what your subtext of the scene is, what your character is thinking. And this is where you really want to understand what your character is looking at. And that can help influence choices. So, for example, if you're surprised, usually what happens is your eyes will start to lead the action, or your brows that kind of pop open. And now usually it's the brows kind of reacting first. Brows go up, and then the eyes open up a little bit. The reason? When we're surprised, what we're doing psychologically is trying to get as much visual information as we can, so our eyes open up wide. So our eyes are going to react before our mouth. Now, if we see something, so I'm just kind of here doing nothing, and then something catches my eye, the first thing that's going to react is my eyes, not my brows, not my mouth, because my eyes are the thing that saw it first. So you're going to have that like dart of the eyes, and then the rest of the face reacts from there. What if I smelt something? So I'm just sitting here and then like just, oh, what's that? You might have the nostrils and the nose area react first before anything else, because you might have the little sniff, and then the brows will come down, and then the eyes, that kind of area there. Now, in the case of my reference that we're doing, there's this sneer that's happening. The thing that I was trying to imagine as I was shooting the reference is like, oh, I smelled or saw something disgusting. And when that happens, the brows will react first, kind of getting that compression in there, brows and then cheeks right here. And then from the cheeks are going to start to pull this area up to create that like, ugh, gross. Now the eyes react kind of last in this case because I saw something that I don't like, and my eyes are going to want to stay locked on them as much as possible to make sure it doesn't come any closer. So my eyes are going to react last and then only crunch in as I start to turn away or in preparation to turn away. So it really just depends on what's going on in your character's psychology. What are they focused on? What are they thinking about when they see this thing? If it's something they don't want to see, maybe it's like a scary movie. The first thing that's going to happen is the eyes might squint closed first because I don't want to see this, and then everything else comes in closed. So this is where shooting reference is helpful, or looking at reference, because there are the defaults that always happen. Our eyes almost always tend to lead. Eyes or brows, usually eyes. And then it's the mouth, and then it's the head. But that's not always the case. It could be that the head leads the action. So maybe I'm just sitting here and someone calls my name and I'm just focused on what I'm doing. My head might start turning and then my expression changes because I heard something and my body's already reacting while I'm focused on what I'm doing. So you want to think of that and then look at reference, shoot reference, and ideally look at genuine reference. You can act it out if you can, but if you find an actual person's reaction to being scared or to starting to cry, that can get you that natural breakdown of the action. If you're acting something you heard, maybe the head could lead. Yeah, exactly. So you would start with the head lead. Sometimes it could be the body that leads, where you're doing something and then you start to turn and then you start to react to the thing. Or for example, if someone tapped your shoulder and you were kind of got scared, the first reaction might be the body kind of flinching away and then the fear into the face. But if you're looking for something and you're like, oh, surprised, it depends on what you're surprised. Maybe you're like concentrating, looking for something, and then someone taps you. The first thing that could react is the body and then the eyes and then kind of the scream afterwards. But maybe I'm looking for it and I see the thing that I wanted to find. Most likely it might be the brows that, or sorry, the eyes that open up first because I'm looking, and and my eyes, boop, pop open a frame before my brows. So it is really just what is happening in your brain. What is going to take that first reaction? And sometimes it goes the opposite way that you'd think. It's really weird sometimes how you might think like you get scared and your eyes might open, but for some people it might be the mouth going and like closing as if they're holding in a scream before they react and like, no, don't. You can break that down in all sorts of ways. There's no rules to this. There's patterns, but we can build in subtext in there and make our shots much more interesting because of it. So here, that's what I'm kind of trying to do right there, is just building in that little bit of subtext. So I think I'm moving the head a little too much. Now let's actually, this is a good habit to get into. If you don't have full speed playback, just make a quick play blast. I usually try to do a play blast as late as possible, but in this case, I want to make sure I'm on the right track before I go too far with this. And in my case, I feel like I've gone too far. I wanted to keep this much more subtle. But it's better to over exaggerate. And if it doesn't turn out, like I said, we know what doesn't work now. So let's see. So the new one is on the left there. Yeah, it's too much. You can see how his head snaps back and then forward. No, I don't like that. But the actual motion isn't terrible. So I just need to ease that out a little bit. Oops. Okay. So let's just quickly tone that down. So for the rotate Y here, I'm just going to scale all this down. Bring that head back quite a ways. I'll rotate Y again. I might even tone this down a little bit. Okay, comes back. And then I think my rotate Z is going a little crazy here. Yeah, right there. So my rotate Z, how do I want to do this? I think I can scale this down a little bit. Kind of hold that pose a little longer. And as it comes through, let's ease that out just a bit more. Okay. I almost feel like I could simplify this. Let's just give it a try. So again, we're testing things. Let's buffer the curve. We'll save this, what we have. And then I'm just going to simplify the curve. And let's rebuild some animation here. So I want to just kind of go right into the pose that is going to get into. So that angled right there. And then from here, let's just kind of have a little bit of a head tilt there, and I'll be able to tone it down quite a bit as well. Okay. So add our moving hold. Something more like that. Okay, I kind of like that a little bit more, but I actually do want to try one more thing. So let's actually do a big change. I'm going to take all of these curves here and let's just let's simplify something. So this is something I like to do in my animations is I'll try something a little bit more complex and then I'll simplify it, or I might do the inverse, just to see what feels better. One of the things that I often find with a lot of shots, honestly, is as animators, we have the tendency to want to over animate. Essentially, we want to make everything bigger and like add more hand motions, add more head motions, add more everything. And while that's cool and it's really nice, often it's not necessary. And what can end up happening is you just overcomplicate something that reads so much better if it's just kept simple. So what I'm going to do here is just make a simple version and compare which one is going to actually feel better. Now, one thing I do want to mention is as I'm doing this, you can see that it's taking some time to do all of this. When you're doing it on your own, you can do it much faster. I'm trying to do this while also explaining the entire process, so it takes a little bit more time. But as you do this, you can be a little bit quicker, a little bit rougher even, and use it as an experiment. You're doing this as a way of figuring things out. So don't feel like you have to get this absolutely perfect on the first go. Do some quick comparisons. And you can get a lot of really cool little details in your shots this way. And just kind of, again, iterate. This is one of the biggest, again, I mentioned this earlier, but one of the biggest things you as an animator can do to improve your work is don't be afraid of redoing a section, reblocking it, see what feels better. This is actually something they do a lot in many, many films, is they don't use the first version that they had. They will iterate. So you will see it in dailies or something at a studio. One version is going to have one acting choice. The next version that the animator shows, it's a totally different acting choice. They tried something new, something different. And it just makes things feel more dynamic because you're finding the choice that works best for the shot and not the one that you just picked first. The Japanese keyboard, yeah. I have a Japanese keyboard and then I have a French keyboard. Let's see. What's the shortcut again? I always get the shortcut key until it pops up on its own. I've got Japanese and then French on my keyboard, which is great until you accidentally hit the hotkey, which should be Control Shift, but for some reason the pop-up isn't coming up. You hit the hotkey and then all your shortcuts don't want to work anymore. Okay. Let's see how we can kind of exaggerate that. I think the head is going a little too far down here. I want to keep a little bit of that eye visible. Okay. And then let's not have this big, huge overshoot here. I want an overshoot, but I want it to be subtle. Yeah, something like that. Get into that nice moving hold. Like so. And yes, I can speak French. Je peux parler français. I was actually French before I was English. My French is super rusty now, unfortunately, which I'm sad about. There's not really too many people in my area that speak French, so I don't get to practice nearly as much as I would like. But I do love speaking French, and I need to read some more French books. I miss that. I'm actually going to start offsetting a few of my curves here, just to push the eases a little bit. There we go. So let's see how that feels. I kind of like that more. I think my rotate Z here, I don't want it to overshoot. It kind of feels weird when it's overshooting. I'm going to just move this so that it eases in here. See how that feels. Yeah. Because I want that kind of like pulling down on that side feeling there. Okay, let's leave that for now. And let's just quickly get the neck in here. The neck is not going to have too much. Essentially, it's going to start to come down here a little bit. Let's have a little ease. So we get that one frame of, you can see a pixel moving of the neck here. And then it starts to move. And then right through here, I just want to make sure it doesn't just lock off. So let's make sure it eases to a stop. I'm going to offset this key here. And I might even add a little bit of an overshoot. Right there. So it goes a little too far back and then forward. And now let's just make sure the breakdowns are interesting. See how it's kind of linear there? So I'm just going to add some keys and just kind of exaggerate that curve a little bit. See how that feels. To get that kind of yoink back of the neck right there. It's almost like the chin comes in and then the chin knocks the neck back a little. let's see, what would you recommend for studying facial expressions? Just look up reference, look up actors, try to mimic the expressions, look up animated films, try to recreate the expressions you see in those. So, for example, look up Tangled, look at their expressions, recreate them on your own rig. Look at Hotel Transylvania, try to make those really cartoony expressions. Those might be a little trickier because those rigs are like super stretchy, but try to get as close as you can. Just do quick little tests like that. That's going to be huge in really understanding what makes facial expressions interesting. Do tests like this where you just do a couple of random expressions and then see how you would animate between them. So there we go. Whoop. There we go. Nice and simple. Much easier. And I think we'll keep that for now. So we've done the head and the neck. We can come in here and refine that a little bit more. It looks a little strange when the body isn't moving. So we can't look too low. But we've got that. Okay. So we took some time on this, but the reason why I wanted to take a lot of time on the head and neck is because everything on the face is going to be built on there. If partway through this motion, we find out that, oh, you know what? I actually do want to turn the head this way. All the expression animation that I'm going to do in terms of refining it is going to have to be redone because I've changed the entire angle in there. Same thing. If I do this and this, you can see how much it changes the expression. Here, he looks pissed off. Here, he looks kind of weird. I'll just put it that way. Here, he looks like he's fallen asleep. Those brows are going to have a huge range in how much it affects it. So if I don't have my head close to the right area, I'm going to probably be redoing a bunch of the facial animation stuff. I don't want to do that. So I try to get the head motion as close as I can. Now, with that, let's actually get to the face stuff because the face stuff is what we really want to go into here. So let's jump in here and let's see, try and go. I just forgot why the line of action is the spiral. Do you mean on the nose? Putting the nose so it moves in an arc? If that's the case, it's just making it more interesting. Having the nose move in a little bit of an arc and a kind of spiral pattern is more interesting than a straight diagonal. Now, it doesn't have to be a spiral. You can do all sorts of patterns. Like in my case, it kind of does this, but you could do something where it goes over and in like that. So not a full spiral. You could do something where it just kind of and eases in there. You could do a line that goes this way, as long as it's not doot doot like that. We don't want diagonals or worse, which was what it was doing before, just straight diagonal. There are moments for those, especially with strong actions like a punch, but for most actions, we want some sort of arc or curve in there. It makes things more interesting, feels more alive. Okay, so let's actually start breaking up some of the facial stuff now. That's what we all came here for. So what I like to do is just start with one of the pieces of the face, brows, eyes, or mouth. Start with one of those. Honestly, it just depends on which or what is happening in the animation. Sometimes I'll start with the mouse. My words today, not great. I will start with the mouth. Sometimes I'll start with the eyes. In this case, for today, I think I'm going to start with the brows because they are the first thing that start to move. So let's take our brows here, and I actually have a button here that we can just use to click on those. And once again, this is where your notes come in handy, where I know when my brows should start moving, approximately. I can always change it later. And how long they will take to move. I checked my reference. I took all of those notes. So that I know that in my case, frame 48, the brows will start to move. And then by frame, it takes about 8 frames. So by frame 56, which is actually a slow move for a brows, or sorry, 54. The brows should pretty much be in position. I'm just going to take this pose here, copy it to 54, sorry, 48, 8 frames. I can math. 56. Yeah, I was right. My math, it did not help me. The mouth. I wouldn't even know how to spell that one. Yeah. I think there was an S in there. Mouth. So already you can see here how the brows are going much faster into position there. Now, what else is going to make those brows move more interestingly? We've got our timing pretty much in place. Great. But there's two things that are making this boring, even with the new timing. Well, three things. One is both brows are moving down evenly, perfectly together, the exact same way. We want to add a little offset. Not so much that one brow moves independently, but we want to lead a little bit with one brow. We also want to lead with a part of the brow. Sometimes the brow will lead with the outer edge, sometimes it leads with the inner edge. The other thing we want to do is we want to push our spacing so that it's not just point A to point B, linear ease in, ease out. And what I mean by a linear ease in, ease out is if we look at our translate Y here, see how all the curves just kind of, it's just boring. Same ease in, same ease out. It's not quite linear, but it creates a linear-esque feeling. We want to offset that. So let's not sneeze. Okay, let's break up that brow motion. So what I can do here is first lead with the inner brows. Because he's kind of squinting, it's going to be the inner brows that start moving first. So I'm just going to make sure to hold the brows here for one frame. Let's actually not do a full hold. Let's do this. Oops. So if you don't have Tween Machine or anything like that, there is a way you can kind of make your own in-betweens that kind of just give you a little bit more control. So I want the brows here to just move a little less than what they're doing right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a key here on 48, move that over, and now you'll notice that there is a transition here between these. They're still moving, but it's very subtle. So I'm just going to set a key on that, and that created my nice subtle ease without any plugins right there. Now, what I can do is take my inner brows, and I'm going to use these to push the brow arc in here and kind of lead that down. So now we get this. You feel how the inner brows are the leading action there. Now, the other thing I want to do is make sure the brows move in an arcing motion. And this is, I can choose which one I want to do. I can either bring them in first and then down so they arc this way, or I can go the other way. So down, then in. In this case, I kind of want to try down, then in. Just a little bit. So we'll start with this. And then let's actually start with which brow do I want to start with? Let's actually start with the screen right brow. I'm going to ease this, oops, wrong frame. Ease this a little bit there. So now we have a little bit more motion on the screen right. The reason for that is he's looking at something he doesn't like, so that side's going to probably close first. So I want the other one to be just a little bit more subtle right in there. Still connected because you can't just move one brow alone, but now they're not just moving together, exactly the same. Now let's kind of come in here and let's just really exaggerate. Exaggerate those brows coming down really quick here. So what I'm going to do, let's select the brows. Right now, they just come down really slowly. I'm going to just ease them coming down a little bit more. So let's set a key here, maybe pull it a few frames over. I'll have to tweak some of my curves here. So it's just kind of easing in a little bit more. And then it'll come crashing down. Something like that. So a little faster down. And then right now, the brows just hit this point and stop. I don't want that. I want them to go much further down. I want them to overshoot. And let's actually make sure I grab all of the brow controls. Let's see. Go as far as I can here. So the brows go too far. And then they'll come back up afterwards. And let's just add a little bit of an ease right in here. Let's see. Something like that. Okay. Hey, Balgrim, bonjour. How's it going? Ça va bien? Oh, je suis content que le stream est intéressant. Merci beaucoup. Would you make one reach first before the other? Probably not. You would probably get one maybe a little bit close, but then they'd both kind of ease in together. We don't want to feel like the brows are moving independently. Otherwise, it makes the face feel disconnected. See, I'm animating a shot where a character jumps onto a bouncy surface, trampoline. How would you go about animating the bouncy surface when he falls onto it? You can use so you make a polygon disc of some kind, and then add a delta mush, which is one of the best deformers, a delta mush deformer or a tension deformer. And then from there, you can create clusters on the vertices and morph it to make the bounce work. That's a very basic way of doing it without having to do any like complex rigging. Ça me fait toujours bizarre d'entendre Beau parler français. Je suis trop habitué à l'anglais. Yeah, I don't speak French too often, so it's very rusty at times. Once I get into the habit, it's like I fall into it. But especially going weeks without speaking French and then jumping into it, it's like I can feel the rust just rubbing off. It's terrible. So let's kind of go in here. Now, I'm trying not to look at the lower face because everything there is all off. So let's come in here and see how much more we can push this. So we've got the basic brow timing in here now, basically. Let's try to improve it. I'm just going to take the brows. Let's kind of do one portion at a time. I think I could also speed this up a little bit, honestly. My reference, I took 8 frames to do the whole motion. I feel like I could do this in less. Which control is this? Okay, the rotation. I feel like I could do it in 6 frames, honestly. I personally like facial expressions that move a little faster. See, is the layer manager different from the anim layer tab? Yes. So this layer manager here is for the Blue Pencil plugin, which I just closed. So the Blue Pencil plugin is a tool that allows you to draw in Maya like that. And this is the layers for that. So you can have different layers for different cameras, or just like I could have one layer here. Let's make a new layer there, and then another one there. so I can turn off the different layers. I like having this open when I'm doing demos because I can draw over, and it also allows me to do draw overs for my own facial expressions. So for example, here, let's do a quick draw over. I want the brows as they come down to go down in this arc here, coming in. Now the color here doesn't show. I'd have to pick a better color. So this way. I should also make that a little bit bigger too. Oop, there we go. That shows up. So yeah, it's really cool. Terra. I used to be able to read that, at least anything that wasn't the kanji. But I haven't practiced in so long. I need to get back into reading Japanese. Or just learning Japanese. I really loved it. Okay. So we want the brows to start coming in. And let's actually keep this going here a little bit. So the inner brow is going to lead a little bit more. And try to exaggerate that curve so it doesn't feel linear. Let's do the other brow as well here. I can actually, let's try this. I'm just curious. I want to really exaggerate that facing coming down. So we get that nice arc in there versus what I was getting before, which was a very flat, well, you can kind of see it here. Like there's no real arc to that curve. So I'm going to try to push this a little bit more. Now, this is a little sharp right here, so I'm just going to add another key right there. Bring this up, ease that out just a little bit. Maybe that's a little too fast. I can add one more frame if we need to. Okay. So now we can definitely feel the inner brow leading the action. Let's kind of tweak our outer brows here. So this one is definitely going to have to start coming down a little sooner. Otherwise, it's going to feel disconnected. So something like that. Let's ease this in just a little bit more. And then same thing here. Ease that. So I really want that outer brow to start moving kind of last here. I don't want it to start feeling like, I want it to feel like the inner brow is pulling it down almost. I'm kind of losing that on the other brow. So let's bring this back up here. So see how that outer corner stays up just a little bit more and then comes down. Okay. Now I'm this right here. See how this is a little too low? I'm losing the mask of the character. I'm just going to keep my brows lined up so that they feel really nice and fluid. Okay. Getting there. Let's actually do our translate X right here. But for the translate X, I definitely want to make sure that this is doing something interesting where it kind of gets a nice swoop in there. So I might hold it back just a little longer here and then really push it in afterwards. So we really feel that arcing motion of the brows coming in. So you can feel that pull in the corner there. Just a little bit. This way that's not just a linear diagonal line. Okay, so something like that. Not bad. Definitely could use a little bit more work. I feel like I could have one more frame right here. Ease that out just a little bit more. Oh, and make sure I actually grab everything. Okay. I'm getting too caught up on nitpicky stuff. I will admit that. I need to be more judicial. Just get it done. Interesting. Why am I missing curve here? See how that brow just kind of goes down too fast? It feels like I'm missing a control. Oh well, we'll leave it for now. So we've got the brows starting to lead the action. Are they perfect? Not at all. Oh, and save check. Thanks. I need to actually save this. And how bad is the blue pencil with plugin or with crashes? It's really good. The Maya Grease Pencil does crash a lot. I find, at least on my system, it always crashes. Blue Pencil, I've never had a crash with it, so I really enjoy it. I feel it's a really good plugin. It's, I forget how much, $75 or something like that. It's not cheap, but it is worth it. Okay. I feel like my brows, the Translate X is just a little off. I'm just going to do a quick tweak here. I think this can be a little lower. Okay. Something a little bit more like this. Yeah, that's a little better. So let me save. And let's go on to, yeah, there's definitely something off with that screen right brow. But this is actually another important thing. Don't get caught up on one thing for too long. So I could keep like punching away at this, trying and trying and trying to get this brow looking just right. But more likely than not, I'm just going to end up noodling this and never quite getting it the way I want it to be. It's just one of those things where I'm getting caught in a cycle. So what I need to do is I need to break that cycle. And the way you do that is you just move on to something else. Just do another part of your animation for just a little bit. And what that'll allow you to do is come back refreshed and not just fighting the same issue over and over and over. So let's move on to the next thing that starts to move. And this will also help break up some action here. So the next thing that starts to move is the top eyelid and the cheek. Now, the top eyelid is just kind of a small anticipation. But this is going to happen around frame, let's see, browse lead, about 51. So I'm just going to take the eye controls here, and this is going to be tricky to get all of them. So what I'm going to do is just going to select, boop, like this, and then deselect the ones I don't want. I often find that just deselecting controls is easier than trying to select controls. And then let's take off the browse here. Like that, and actually, yeah, so like this. And just for the sake of it, because I might need to key them again, I'm just going to go to Create, Sets, Quick Select Set. Let's call this Eyes, and add that to my shelf. So the eyes are going to hold this pose until frame 51. So now you can see the brows start to lead, and then the eyes change. And actually, I need to also make sure these are selected as well. Oops. So, boop, set a key on everything. So now the eyes stay and then they close a little later. And definitely I missed a control there, but that's fine. You'll see that eye is kind of deforming right there. Yeah, I definitely need to ease the eyebrows. I'm moving them too quick right there. So I want them to ease a little bit, but at this point they are moving so far or so quickly that the eye hasn't had a chance to react yet. Is too much. So what I'll do is just take my brows. Let's make sure I have everything keyed again, and hopefully this time it'll actually take my keys. Okay, good, it's doing it. So from frame 48, let's add one more frame there so that we get another frame of ease right here. Comes through. And then this is still moving too quickly for this point. So I'm going to set a key here, move it off. And then that should be better once we get the eye to actually close there. Okay. This eyelid is definitely doing some weird things. I think it's this control here. Yeah. It's going down too quick for some reason. Interesting. Do you know how to make my not select controls behind a geometry that you can't see? Let's see. I don't usually turn that on. I believe. There's it might be in the tool settings. So if you go into, let's bring in our toolbox here, into our selection options here. Let's see. No, not that one. I think it's in the preferences. Under, where is it? Selection here. It might be camera-based selection. I never turn it on. I always like to select things through. Yeah, try that. I'll try to think about it as well as I'm working here and see if I can get the actual here. I always forget. But try the camera selection. So let's go through here. We've got the eyes. Starting to move, and do I have it on the wrong frame? No, that's right. Let's just delete this for now. It's getting in the way. And the eyes will close very quickly. Once they start moving, they don't take too long to close. Right now, it's taking way too long. You can see the eyes are actually closed here on 63. So it's making everything really slow. Instead, the eyes will only take up until like frame 55 before they're fully closed. So once they start moving, now you can see that makes a difference. Suddenly the eyes are closing much quicker right through there. It's a little linear and boring, but we're starting to build in those offsets. So we get something like that. And before I go into like details on the eyes, let's actually just clean some stuff up and just set up our timing. So the eyes start moving here. That's good. The next area that I want to do is the mouth. So the mouth starts moving, I believe. It'll be 6 or 51 as well. So the top lip will start to move. So let's actually make sure to get our keys in place here. And then the mouth moves very, very quickly. The top lip will move up until like 57-ish. Well, actually, yeah, about 57. So right around there. So now we get that much faster mouth motion. And you can see how we're starting to offset different things. And how that's starting to make the face just a little bit more visually interesting. Now, is it perfect? Ooh, definitely not. It needs a lot of work here, but I'm just trying to build in the base right now. Make sure that everything is working clearly and properly. I think I selected a control that I didn't want, but seems fine. I'm getting a little bit of interpenetration on the mouth there for some reason. Not sure why. I'm not sure what changed there. I think it might be this. Got moved somehow. Interesting. Yeah, the teeth got moved. Simple fix for this is just moving the teeth. There you go. Okay. So we've got the breakdowns coming through here. At this point, we've got our basic timing. We just need to kind of break things down a little bit more in the different areas. So let's kind of go through here again very quickly with starting from the brows now that we've got everything else in. So the brows start to come in. This is not bad. I feel like, yeah, the screen right brow, it just drops very quickly for some reason. Right there. So let's ease that a little bit more. Okay. So I think the brows are pretty much done for now. We definitely need to refine them, especially the outer brow there. Let's actually do that right now. Outer brow. Yeah, that's better already. So that's good. For For the eyes, let's actually go in there now. The eyes, we want to offset the top and bottom lids. We want the top lid to be the thing that reacts first. So I'm just going to take the bottom lids here and make sure they hold just for one more frame. That way you can see the top lids start to react there, and then the bottom lids. Okay. Now the other thing I want to do is that the eyes, once they start reacting, should close pretty quickly. And I want them to actually close. He's going to squint and then open his eyes up afterwards. So let's take the eyelids here. Starts moving on 51. By frame 50. Yeah, I want this to be pretty quick. Frame 55, let's say. The eyes are going to be fully closed. Now, with closed eyes, we talked about this before, it can be a little tricky, especially if you started shaping your eyes quite a bit, just because you kind of have to reset certain controls or really shape the eyelids to get that proper seal to the eyes. So right now, that's what I'm trying to do here, is just push the eye shape closed. Right here. Especially when you're going with these kind of extreme shapes, this can be a little tricky. So something like that. This eye is a little too round there, so I'm just going to bring that up a little. Okay. So we close the eye here. It's still a little linear, but I just want to make sure I get this hold in here for now. Then the eyes will stay closed for how many frames? I kind of want it to be until right around here. As he turns his head, then he'll open his eyes again. So let's keep them closed till about 60. We'll say 65. We'll go 10 frames for now. Okay. So we're going to just take the eye shape here and copy that over. Oop. So now we get the eyes closed. And what's opening them here? Oh, I know what it is. It's the eye control here. Because it's moving, it's causing the eyes to open. Interesting. Let's see. I guess I'm just going to have to key this myself, which is not ideal, but not terrible. Essentially, I just want the eyes to stay closed this whole time. So I'm just going to push this down here. Just down here. Now, there could be like a fleshy eye control that I'm not seeing that'll solve this, but honestly, it's not hard to just do this. Now the eyes open up. Okay. So you can see how I'm starting off very rough. I'm not trying to go in and do every tiny little frame one at a time. I'm just trying to block this in quickly and efficiently. And then once I have what I want in there, I can refine it a little bit more. I want to work quickly, not slowly. And I say that as I tend to be very slow in a lot of cases. When I'm kind of streaming, I tend to get caught on details. But normally when I work, I try to be as efficient as possible and just go as quickly as possible. You don't want to waste time, essentially. Okay, so closes the eyes. Let's keep refining the eyelids a little bit. Start with those. So as the eyes close, we start the motion here on frame 51. That's good. But then let's just do the translate Y here, the up and down of the eyelid. I want to have the eyelid ease in a little bit more. Right now, they're just kind of moving very linearly. So let's set a key here and just ease that in right there. And let's go even further here. Something like that. So they start to move. A little too much right there. So what I'm looking at here is as the brows come down and the eyelids come down, I don't want them to feel like they move in tandem. I want it to feel like there's a little bit of an ease in, or like a slight offset to them. Now this is interesting. What is causing the eyes to not be closed here properly? Lower lid? Could be. Yeah, let's push the squint of the lower lids here. So we feel that come up a little faster. And then I want them to ease to a close here, just a little bit. Just so we can get that feeling of the eyes don't just snapshot. It's like, oh, it's almost like a little bit of a disgust versus snap, which would be more of a shock and pull away. So I'm just trying to think, what do I want my character to be feeling here? If I just randomly push poses, it's not going to be as efficient. So let's actually go in here. I'm going to open this up just a little. Oops, wrong control. This one. Open this up just a little bit so we can see just a sliver of the eyes still. Like so. Then it closes down. I can add more pressure into the eyes here by having the lower lids come down, and let's actually take all of them. And then as he closes his eyes here, let's push this down even more. So we feel that pressure of the eyelid pushing down. This way it just kind of gives that extra little emphasis. And then as he turns his head, we can ease that off a little bit more. Keep that up there. Okay, so something like that. And we can refine this as we go. There's no be all end all to this. We can do all sorts of things if we want. So you get that. This is moving down too fast here. I'm just going to ease that a little bit more. Okay, cool. So we've got the eyes blocked out roughly. As they open, we can refine this because right now they're just kind of sliding open over a long span of time. Let's actually open them over 4 frames, maybe something like that. So something like this. And then let's kind of push the ease of the eye. Actually, let's do 6 frames. Eyelids can open over a long period of time, which is really nice. Okay. Very quickly there. There we go. Okay. So we've got the brows and the eyes kind of reacting now. And it's still very rough. This is not like a polished level here. This is just trying to get the overall breakdowns in place. And from there, we can just shape things and do a little bit of polish. So one thing that's also happening right now is that the nose is starting to react too quickly as well. I'm going to select the nose here. Okay. And yeah, you can definitely see that. The nose starts to react, I believe, on frame 51, was it? No, 52. It's after the cheeks and the eyes. So I'm going to just hold that nose pose up until here. And then it'll start to react. Now you'll notice that the nose is actually moving already. Why? Because we've got these squash and stretch controls that are causing the face to morph. So I would want to hold these as well and make sure that they are not moving too soon. Or else we're going to start getting some weirdness in the face. And let's do the nose again because I don't think I set all my keys on there. And I have an eye control somewhere. Yeah, this one. Doop. Oh, there we go. So now you can see how the nose doesn't react yet. We have the brow, then a little bit of the eyes, then the nose. So it's just building in those little offsets. Then the nose comes up. The nose shouldn't take that long to move. It's noses and kind of the sneers it goes up very quickly. So I think I could do that in 4 frames. Yeah, like 3 or 4 frames. Let's try 3, just for the sake of it. For facial animation, I always try to go a little faster if I can. There we go. So all of a sudden that nose gets a nice quick motion of those muscles kicking in. Let's maybe add 1 more frame just to see. Curiosity. Yeah, let's do it 4 frames and then we'll just push the ease quite a bit. I really want that nose to ease here so we feel a little bit of motion and then it moves quickly into place. And keep in mind, we're not doing any overshoots or anything like that just yet. We're just getting the base timing of things here. Okay. So that's working pretty well. We could refine the nose later, but for now, this feels better. And then let's go with the mouth now. So the mouth is going to be a little trickier. The reason the mouth is going to be trickier is because of the way it's going to offset. It doesn't offset. Let's actually make a quick select set for this. Mouth. It's not going to offset as a whole. What's going to happen first is that the upper lip will start to move first. And it takes, let me check my reference here. How many frames before my bottom lip starts to move? Like 3 extra frames at least before the bottom lip starts to move here. So I'm just going to set a key. Let's go here. And I'm going to try and offset things a little bit. So this is going to be tricky because of the controls I used. We've got this global control that's moving the mouth around, so that's good. But if I want to keep the bottom lip in place, I've got a couple of choices. And oh, I think I forgot to copy the jaw. So let me do that super quick. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, you can see how that mouth just looks really fake right now. It doesn't feel like it's moving in tandem with anything. So what we want to do here, and actually I need to double check something. I think the nose is moving too soon. No, that's good. So what I want to do here is really make sure that I feel the top lips lead the action. And the other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that we don't see the teeth moving in the head. So how do I do this? Well, I'm going to have to add some very important breakdowns here. I'm probably going to want to close the mouth for a little bit. That way we don't see the teeth move. Or I'm going to have to move the mouth extremely quickly. So let's figure out which one we want to do. And for this, I might just add like full breakdowns. I'm not just going to be offsetting things. So let's go here on frame 53. And essentially, I want to look at the old mouth position here and make sure that the new mouth position stays in relatively the same spot, except for the top lips. We get that kind of sneering motion first. So let's do this. One thing I like for stuff like this is to use the grease pencil tool and just draw out. So let's do grease pencil. Actually, I always forget what this is actually. Is it? Make sure the layer is visible. Show none. Okay, good. It's only on its own thing. Okay, so what I want to do here is just draw out the mouth shape. Right here. And then I'll go forward and just try to keep that mouth pretty much in the same position that it was before. If I can just select this control. Interesting. Why can I not select anything? Interesting. My selection isn't working anymore. Yeah, click and drag. I know what it is. There you go. So what happened is the cursor, you can change your brush size here by holding down the B key and then middle mouse dragging. That was frozen. For some reason, it wasn't deactivating. So I just tapped the B key. So you can see it's happening again. Tap the B key. Now it's working again. So for some reason, it was just locking it. So I'm going to keep that mouth kind of in position here. Make sure the jaw stays closed as well. And let's actually, I'm just going to take the whole mouth pose, copy it over like that so it stays still for the most part. And then from here, I can essentially just pull the corners up a little bit. And let's do the whole top lip as well. And we'll create this nice breakdown here. So that's a little too much. And now it's trying to do, there you go. Switch the language. So we start to get that upper lip moving first. Right there. I think I can offset this a little bit. So I do want to have a little sympathetic motion on the bottom lip. Otherwise, everything's going to look a little wonky. We want to feel a little bit of motion there. The corner of the mouth can probably be pulled up just a little bit as well. Just a tiny bit. So we start to pull up there. So that's our first breakdown. And we'll be able to refine it later. And then as he comes in here, let's actually get that mouth closed pretty quick. So his top lip comes up. As his mouth starts to come up here, let's add another breakdown. So we've got 53. Yeah, we'll go on 55 here. We'll add another breakdown. Oh, and Whittling Yeti, take care. Oh, no, wait. I had to go. Oh, you're back. Welcome back. A roller coaster of emotions there. What did you miss? We are just breaking up the face. So trying to get everything to kind of read clearly and correctly. And actually, before I add a breakdown here, let's actually go to the peak of the mouth here and we'll close this. So I think a little bit of jaw motion here is going to help. Let's kind of clean up the mouth pose a little bit. The joy of kind of pushing facial expressions is once you have to try and clean up the mouth and have it close correctly. It's the same with the eyelids. You kind of have to play around a lot with it to make it feel just right. And in this case, I want to go pretty quick. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Okay. So we start open, it pulls up, it closes, and then opens again. And now you can see how we skip the mouth or the teeth moving right in there. Because the teeth are now hidden, and we'll actually hold this for 2 frames, I can essentially just snap the teeth. Let's do this here. So now they stay in place, and that was not staying in place. They'll basically stay in one spot until the mouth is closed, and then they'll switch position. So what I need to do here is just make sure, yeah, that feels good. So we've got that. Very rough. The mouth closes. Let's actually keep the mouth going up a little bit more here. We'll be able to close it a little bit too. And add that puckering shape in there. So we start building an arc. And then as it comes down, let's see, how do I want to do this? I can add just a little bit of an arc going out screen right. And let's do this on 2s. Kind of push it down and around. Something like that. It's super rough. Pretty bad. But we're starting to get that offset in there. And from here, it's just kind of refining the shapes. So like right here, this shape is not great. Right there, it's kind of blah, for lack of a better term. So as long as I have the base motion in here, That's the important bit. I can always exaggerate and push this to be more dynamic later. Now let's actually go through here, and I'm just going to offset this chin control because that's going to add a lot to the lower face. It starts to come up. The mouth here, let's kind of push this up a little bit more, overshoot it. And then have it come down. Oops. A little too far. And then ease in here. So we get that extra little squash and stretch of the face. Add a little drag to the jaw here. Just a little bit. I also need to do a jaw pass here. And you can see it's very rough, but I'm trying to approach it one bit at a time. I'm trying to make sure that everything is how to phrase it properly. I'm actually gonna, yeah, there we go. Drag the chin down as well. I want to make it feel like everything is connected, but I'm not just moving things randomly. I'm trying to think through every element. Why am I moving it? How can I improve this motion here to make it feel more interconnected? Let's actually have the teeth kind of close in a little sooner here. And then I want to try and push this here so we feel the jaw opening. First, and then the lips separating. So we feel that chin dropping before the lips separate. So like that. See how it's very subtle, but you can kind of feel that chin coming down and then the mouth separates open. Let's kind of peel this open just a little bit more and then pop it open. Okay. Super rough still. Like this is not polished. Once I've kind of got everything kind of in place, one thing I will do, we're not going to do it here because I've only got about 20 minutes left and we're not going to have enough time, is I'll go through and kind of do an appeal pass over everything. So for example, let's just going to do it kind of quickly on this frame here, 53. See how the face is kind of not super interesting? We've got a nice facial pose here. We get into a nice facial pose there. But this pose is bland. It's kind of not interesting to look at. Well, I can go in here and just try to exaggerate certain things to try and make it a little bit more interesting. So we don't get these kind of boring breakdowns. So I'm kind of looking at this here. We're seeing what I can try to push. And I think part of it is the eyelids. They're kind of just very flat and boring. So let's see if I can push the spacing of the top eyelids here. Maybe keep them a little bit more open. And maybe a little bit more open here as well. So we get a little bit more of a hit right in there. And that pose already looks just a little bit more interesting. What else? We can try to push the brows so that they're just a little bit more offset from each other. So maybe can I push this brow a little lower here? A little faster. So we get that nice contrapposto to the face right in here. Okay. So that feels better already. What else could I try to do? Well, the mouth shape, one thing I'm not a fan of is, see how the bottom lip is kind of getting a weird wiggle to it, as well as the top lip? I want to keep that simpler. So I would want to kind of keep that shape as much as I can flatter. Now, this would require a lot more like fine-tuned mouth posing, so I'm not going to try to do it here right now. But that's definitely something I would try to do. Let's get that shape in the mouth here a little bit nicer. But yeah, we're just going through and trying to push the appeal of the poses. It could also be shaping the eyelid. So as we close the eyelid here, we're losing some of the nice shaping we had done. So we could maybe keep this a little bit more open here. Maybe push a little bit more of the corner of the eye so we get that squint caused by the lower cheek. Same thing here as his eyes are closing. Get that squint in there, even push a little bit of the muscle around the eye to go in there. Let's actually make sure our eye, there's a little gap in there. Let's close that up. So we can go through and add all of these tiny little details. Is it super important? No, but it does help in the long run. Now, one thing I want to do here is let's offset the squash and stretch control on the top of the head a little bit. It's kind of sliding into place a little too slowly. And I want it to kind of follow the brows. So the brows kind of get into position. Let's go 57. Something like this. And essentially what this control is doing is just adding a little extra motion here. You don't usually need this, but it's nice to have. It just adds a little fleshiness if your rig has it. So I want to keep it stable until he starts to move and really get that pressure. So it almost feels like the brows are pulling the top of the head down a little bit. You get that nice pressure in there. And then let's ease into the end there. Get that connected feeling in there. Now there's something off with the head motion now that we've gotten everything else in place. But for now, I'm not going to worry about it. I feel like I could start moving. Actually, let's just do it now. I feel like I could start moving the head one frame earlier, 1 or 2. Essentially what's happening is the face is getting into its absolutely squished pose, and then the head starts to move. And I'm not a huge fan of that because it makes it feel like a 1-2 thing. Head squeezes down, stops, then the head turns. Ideally, what I would prefer is to have it where the head goes, or the face squashes down, and just before it reaches its peak, the head starts to move. And it layers the actions a little bit more. I'm just going to try that a little bit. Do you worry about moving the whole head, messing up the rest of the facial animation? Yeah. You do want to make sure that your head motion is as close as possible to the final result early on. If you don't, you run into the issue of just having everything feel, what's the right word? Well, when you make a head change, a big one, it could ruin everything. So in this case, with this rig, let's actually ease this a little bit right here. If you move the head direction, So his eyes are closed right here. If I move his head direction, you can see how it's actually opening up his eyes there. So we have to be very careful because if we change the eye direction, it's going to open up the eyes and we have to redo all of the bait or the eye animation again, which would suck. So don't want to do that. If I have to, I will. But as much as I can, I'll try to avoid it. There's definitely a hitch here in the nose. And it's caused by the nose scrunching up and then the head anticipating down. So I'm just going to look at my rotate X of the head and see if there's anything I can do to kind of adjust that. I kind of want, as this is coming up here, let's start here. I'm just going to anticipate the head going up slightly, just a little bit. And what that should hopefully do is make it so that the nose, if I track that, it's just constantly got a upwards motion to it. Very slightly. Yeah, it's still there, the hitch. It could also be that I haven't really refined the nose too much, so we might just be getting a hitch in there. I'm not going to worry too much about it right now. Let's see. I imagine this is why it's not advised to parent a camera to the head and animate the face without looking through the final camera. Yeah, the facial cam, which is basically, for anyone who doesn't know, a camera that is constrained to the face and just follows the face, is a very nice thing to have in terms of just kind of pushing your facial pose and making sure you can track things, especially on a character that's moving around a lot. Trying to do that from your shot camera can be a pain. The problem is that you don't want to make the face appealing from there because it doesn't matter. And Superhero, thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. The face, you have to pose to the camera. That's the only important camera that you want to care about. The other camera, facial cam, is nice because it kind of lets you see a few extra details, but really it's not that important. Now here, you'll notice that the face kind of feels a little dead and the brows just kind of move on their own here. The reason for this is we don't really have a moving hold before this point. So what I would have to do is just add a slight moving hold here. I'm probably not going to do that because I don't think I'm going to have enough time. But it would just be kind of adding a tiny little motion throughout this section here so his head doesn't just freeze completely. So it would be something like making sure, see if we can do it one really quick here. This kind of keeps going down just a little bit more. We just get this kind of base residual motion going through. Let's see if we can push it just a little bit more. So I don't want a flat curve in any point. So you can just kind of see, if you look really closely on the edge here, there's just like a tiny little pixel motion. That's all you really need a lot of the time. So here, let's make sure this keeps moving here just a little bit. Just a little. And let's actually look at it from our actual camera view. So you can see it's just a tiny little motion. And that'll be enough to keep the character from feeling dead in space. And I can exaggerate that a lot more, but for now, let's kind of keep it the way it is. Okay, so I don't have too much time left. So let's actually do a quick play blast. We could keep refining things and make it better, but we don't even know if it's going to look good. So let's do a quick play blast and then we'll make notes of things we have to change. And if something doesn't work, that's totally fine. Ideally, I should have done a play blast sooner just to make sure the overall poses are working. But as long as I take notes, I didn't waste time. I just learned what didn't work. So it's not terrible. Now, let's take a look here. And actually, I'm going to do another play blast, but this time I'm just going to make sure I turn off the body so we keep things consistent. So, do that play blast again. Let's see. I don't know if I'll have time to look at people's work. I can maybe take some quick looks at stuff. It'll be like 1 or 2 comments, if that. But we can definitely try. Okay, so let's just look at one shot at a time. So this is our latest one. Let's see how it feels. Yeah, not bad. Not great. For no polish whatsoever and just kind of throwing things in place. It's there. So let's compare it to what we had before. Oh yeah, that one, that was the more complex head turn. You can see it's okay, but see how that extra motion, like that extra pause, does it add anything really? Is it making this so much better? No, it's just overcomplicating it. The key here is the facial expression. And that reads so much better. Simple. So it's a lot of times it's okay to do complex things, but it's also nice to simplify because simpler things tend to be easier to focus on for the audience. So let's actually look at this with the old version here. So let's go version 1. So you can see the difference here. The same poses, the timing hasn't changed whatsoever, but it's the breakdowns. All of it is just putting in the breakdowns and offsetting the face. So let's kind of compare here. You can see the brows start to move first before the rest of the face. You feel that upper lip start to curl before the nose starts to move. Then the nose comes in. The face hits much faster, way faster than the other one. Added some extra breakdowns in the mouth to have it close first and then reopen so that we don't see the other one, you see the tongue just raising up into the mouth. It looks really weird. You even see the teeth sliding in the face. With this new one, the teeth are technically moving, but because the lips are kind of moving with it, it feels more organic. We've got just little arcs in everything and just makes it so much more organic and interesting. Now from here, we can start going into the polish pass, which that's shaping everything, making sure every mouth shape is super appealing, really pushing the nostril flares and everything. I pretty much just put 2 breakdowns on the nose and that's it. So that needs a lot more work right there. So it's really just breaking up the actions. I do feel like the brows are a little linear. I think I could push those right here. It just kind of feels bland. So I would definitely want to push the brows a little bit more. What else? So push the brows. I would want to add a little tongue motion in there just because we've got that, like that. You can almost hear that mouth sound in there. It'd be cool to see a little tongue motion just to help accentuate that. What else? I do have to do a pass on the iris and pupil sizes because you can see they do shrink down by the end here. and I didn't really touch them as they were closing. So I could do a pass on that. What else could I do? I would definitely want to do a cheek and cheek facial pass to connect all of those elements in there. Right now, luckily, this rig is very, very squishy and organic. So you move part of the face and everything else kind of adjusts a little bit. But I would still want to push that a little bit more, especially the cheeks as he kind of compresses down, really scale those up so we feel that compression coming up into there. What else? I think I could add a little bit more jaw motion when he goes like that at the end. It feels a little stiff, and that's mostly the jaw itself, not the control on the bottom. What else could I do? Yeah, I think the final mouth pose could also kind of open up a little bit more and then will essentially overshoot. Right now the mouth pose just kind of slides into place right there. So I would want to push that. Yeah. And then a few other things. We could do a hair pass, things like that. I I believe he has hair controls. Let me actually double check. Does he? Maybe not. Okay, we might not be able to do a hair pass. But yeah. Let's see. The way the nose gets so short isn't a problem? No. So as long as it's not off model, like if I go here and do this, like technically the tip of the nose doesn't really move, but you can see how much shorter the nostril gets right there, especially compared to this, like to the brow right there. It shrinks quite a bit. In animation, we can exaggerate that as long as it doesn't feel like the character is not the same character. In this case, we're right on that edge. I might bring the nose down a little bit, but then I might lose some of the extra compression that I want to get in there. So which control was it that I used? Let's double check here. Was it this one? Yeah. So let's just do a quick test. It is not hard to do. I'll just take this and scale it down. So now we get that same motion, but just a little less. And now we don't have that extreme squash in there. And we can always just undo, redo. Yeah, I actually kind of like that a little bit more. We get a little bit more nostril. So, oh yeah, there you go. You'd think I'd be used to sharing my screen by now. So all I did was I took the nose control, took my translate Y, the up and down, and I scaled it, boop, like that. And now the nose doesn't go nearly as high. It still goes up, but let's see, what other controls would I need here? I think that's the main one. So there you go. So it's yeah, it's totally fine to exaggerate as long as I'm not doing something like this where suddenly there's no way his nose could do that. Or for example, like I'm squashing and stretching his face in a way that is not anatomically possible. But it's fine as long as I don't push it to the point where his face feels like totally squashed or like he's a totally different person here. Especially the top. Like if I start doing this, now he just feels like a totally different character. So for facial expressions, do you recommend spline blocking? It really depends. I like to do spline blocking for facial expressions when I'm starting to really incorporate them because I feel it's just easier to get all the offsets because it's all offsets. There's so many little offsets all over the place. And stepped blocking, it's a lot harder to get that built in. With that said, I will typically put facial expressions in while I'm still in step blocking for the rest of the pose. And I'll just start refining and breaking down the face once I go into splines a little bit more. So, yeah. And then did you do anything for those textures? Because it looks like a rendered shot. No, this is just the rig by itself. All I did was I like to turn on anti-aliasing right here because it smooths things out. I'll sometimes add ambient occlusion there, and yeah, that's about it.